Hey guys, welcome to Challenges Education. In our current affairs section, we have started daily news analysis of All India Radio from newsonair.com. I hope this will help accelerating your preparation for government exams. Here the show begins.
Program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on benefits of social sector schemes. The participants are political analysts Professor Subrato Mukherjee and N.K. Singh and K.V. Prasad, journalist, who initiates and moderates the discussion.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Jaipur, Rajasthan on Saturday. The idea is that he will be addressing a public meeting and of course getting a witness to an audiovisual presentation on the experience sharing by 12 beneficiaries of schemes of the Government of India as well as Government of Rajasthan. This presentation will be moderated by the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Srimati Vasundhara Raje. These schemes include the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Skill India, Rashtriya Bal Swasthya Karyakram. And of course some of the regional or the state programs are the Mukhyamantri Rashtriya Yojana, Bhamasha Swasthya Bima Yojana, Mukhyamantri Jal Swavalambam Abhiyan, Shramik Kalyan Card, Mukhyamantri Palanhar Yojana, Chhatra Scooty Vitran Yojana, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Varisht Nagrik Tirth Yatra Yojana. The Prime Minister will also be laying the foundation stone for 13 urban infrastructure projects with a total outlay of 2,100 crores. And prominent among them will be projects like the Integrated Infrastructure Package for the Walled City of Udaipur, Elevated Road Project for Ajmer, Water Supply and Sewerage Projects in Ajmer, Bhilwara, Bikaner, Hanumangarh, Sikar and Mount Abu, upgradations of the STPs in Dholpur, Nagaur, Alwar and Jodhpur. And of course, there is one more program or is the projects under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban in the districts of Bundi, Ajmer and Bikaner. Professor Mukherjee, program is quite elaborate. And if one notices in the last few weeks, the Government of India and the Prime Minister in particular has been holding direct meetings with the various beneficiaries of the flagship programs initiated by the government since the 2014. There are very many programs if one goes to list of it, but if you go by the 4 or 5 programs that will be showcased, if one may say so, the beneficiaries will be there before the Prime Minister to say how they have got the advantage of the program. If I begin with something like the what is called the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. Now the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana is obviously major scheme for gas distribution for the LPG. The idea is that people who were, when the program was conceived in 2015, it was said that 24 crore households that the country has, at least 10 crore has no LPG. And these houses were dependent largely on traditional forms of cooking as fuel, whether it is dung cakes or it will be firewood and so on and so forth, whose emissions of course adds to the problem. Well, it was started in May 2016 with the idea of 5 crore connections and each connection costing 1,600 crores. If I were to ask you first and foremost, the large flagship concern is to ameliorate the lot of the people, the downtrodden, the have-nots in the society. All the 5 schemes that I mentioned, and don't you think they were heading in that direction?
Prashad, if you really look to it, the mass democracies of our times, there is always a problem of communication. How do you really bring to the people the necessary, the essential knowledge of what the government is doing? So it used to be done in a variety of ways before the arrival of radio and TV and the digital media. But from the very beginning, there was an attempt to do the needful and communicate to the people between the government and the people. So there should not be any deficit in it. You remember that Rousseau's famous dictum that British people are free once in 5 years is not exactly a good attribute to democracy, but then since there is no alternative to it, the representatives of government have always tried it. Now if you really look to the history of it, the turning point was the 30s. On the one hand, there was the New Deal after the Depression, and it was Franklin D. Roosevelt who really started a weekly radio program in the United States, which was extremely popular and helped him creating a great support base for him. You know, democrats even today say that was the golden period of modern American history, and that is continued even today. And I'll just give one example, that Mahatma Gandhi became a world figure once the people everywhere heard his voice. So it is technology that changes society, and what present Prime Minister is doing, he is trying to use the social media. This is Mann Ki Baat that we all know, quite a popular program, to communicate with the people on the basis of specific questions and the answers. There is certain amount of redressal, but this is another platform altogether, where you really try to alleviate, as you point out, the downtrodden. For instance, the Antyodaya schemes of Gandhi, now in a very modern form, of different ways of bringing in real relief in the households and make the life of ordinary people easier. So what the Prime Minister is trying to do for the last few weeks, in a way, is to get in touch with some people who are the beneficiaries. It may be called some kind of a sample survey, because India being a vast country, and any kind of really scheme that you talk about will also leave a very large number who will not be availing it. But if you really look to, the purpose is to see that the people who are getting the benefit, how much is the benefit, and to know the perception. And I think the purpose would be to have the corrective measures once the Prime Minister knows that what are the shortfalls in the program and the improvements that are possible, especially when India being very, very different terrain, because in the context of our country, the subcontinental size, the problems are many local problems, and in some of them, local solution is essential.
Well, if one looks into the wide sweep of social welfare measures that have been initiated by the Narendra Modi government, you see the whole effort has been dovetailed into many programs that are already existing and refocusing them with a sharper energy, infusing greater thrust and direction. For instance, you mentioned about this when we talked about the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. It also subsumes some of the larger goals in terms of energy conservation, India's self-sustainable, the SDGs as we call the sustainable development goals, because we also are looking at the carbon emissions, the kind of thing. Mr. Singh, while just heard Professor Mukherjee say how the Prime Minister is directly reaching out to the people, in a way he said this is a sample survey for the Prime Minister who is adept at using the social media to connect directly with the people, and also his Mann Ki Baat, the radio address, which has been very popular for the last several months, that it has been aired every last Sunday of the month. If you look at, we mentioned 5 schemes that the Prime Minister is going to hear directly about. Of the major schemes is the Ujjwala Yojana, the Mudra Yojana, the Awas Yojana, Skill India, and Bal Swasthya Karyakram. We were just discussing, as you saw, the issue of Ujjwala. How do you look at it?
One of the finest schemes of delivering of public good. Ujjwala, otherwise if you see the kind of sufferings that they were subjected to, that used to be phenomenal. Now that by one scheme of the government, there is complete eradication of that trying situation of which they were subjected all these years and all these decades or rather centuries. So Ujjwala is one of the finest schemes. Coupled with that, some of the direct delivery schemes which he has initiated. See, the problem, it is a new experience that Prime Minister is adopting. New in the sense that he is directly communicating to the masses. In this, like tomorrow's program, he will tell the nation that, see, this is how we are benefiting the society. These are the schemes. Unfortunately, the pace at which the union government is launching these schemes, particularly the Prime Minister schemes, Prime Minister crop insurance scheme for that matter, and several other public good schemes, they are not being carried with the same kind of enthusiasm by the respective state governments. That gets stultified at some place or the other because of bureaucratic snags. So that is where Prime Minister has to directly communicate with the masses, apprising them of the situation, growing collective consciousness with regard to those programs, and that is how he is. It's one of the new experiments that a leader, and the reason is very obvious, because there is a very strong credibility of the Prime Minister among the masses. There is no denying this fact. That being the situation, obviously, this communication has to be direct. Unfortunately, Indian media is not into development journalism. So you will not find a single studio discussion or a single public discourse on the issue of Fasal Bima Yojana, that is crop insurance scheme, how, whether it succeeded or it failed, if it failed, why, or if it partially succeeded, what were the reasons. State government, are they lackadaisical in their approaches? Are they very casual, or are they very reluctant? Or the corrupt system at the state government level are blocking the delivery? These are the factors. Unfortunately, at the state government level, we did not find a commensurate enthusiasm, with the result that now Prime Minister has to directly communicate to the masses. Otherwise, it would have been a secondary tertiary effect. It could have been by the ministers, MPs and party structure, unlike Congress. See, in Congress, some of the schemes were very good. But because of the complete void between the masses and the government, or the cadre and the government, it did not carry conviction. But here, Prime Minister is directly communicating to the masses, and at a time when, communication is very, very smooth now. So tomorrow when he will do this, at least, a large number of people across the country will see that these are the programs. Now they will start putting pressure on the state government system which are at the delivering end. Unfortunately, delivery is still with the respective state governments in most of the cases. Like Ujjwala Yojana, delivery was with the government. There is a direct benefit transfer, the accounts. It has eradicated corruption to a substantial extent. But by and large, when it comes to delivery of goods, that is where it gets stultified, for the simple reason that the state governments are not fully attuned, not very much enthusiastic towards this. That's the reason why Prime Minister has to communicate the programs and to show that these are the benefits that are being churned out of this exercise. So tomorrow when he will speak entire media, unfortunately media shows, it should have been job of media rather than Prime Minister telling about these schemes. But media unfortunately is more interested in Gai, Bail, Vande Mataram and all these kind of things. Otherwise development would have been the main discourse of the country. This is what the Prime Minister is going to do tomorrow. Otherwise, he communicates directly with the farmers. That should have been a real public discourse, which is completely wanting in the present setup. We don't find that the media is really very much sensitive to these issues. Say, for example, 150% increase in Fasal Bima Yojana, in MSP. This should have been the main issue of discourse, public discourse, debates, but you didn't find it anywhere. That is the reason why crop insurance scheme is one of the best, and I wouldn't say 150%, 50% of the cost of production. Calculation may vary A2 FL or C2, that can vary, but a quantum jump of 200. Now the problem that Prime Minister is confronting, he has announced it. Is it going really to fructify? Again, you will find that at some point of time, if the state governments are not very sensitive, it will be completely gobbled up by the dalals, the brokers, the grain traders. So that is where the problem lies, and that is why Prime Minister has to directly communicate to the masses or to the beneficiaries.
Professor Mukherjee, if one looks at it, the beneficiaries will be interacting with the Prime Minister, or rather they will be narrating their experience, sharing their experience with an audience which obviously is a national Prime Minister present himself. But if you look at one of the programs that is going to be looked at is the Mudra Yojana. The Mudra Yojana essentially launched in 2016 with the idea that the commercial banks will give loans to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and also women. If you look at the statistics, they look very impressive. The website is constantly updated on a regular basis, and it was based on the National Sample Survey, which says that almost 5.77 crores were small businesses, which is very individuals who were doing trade, and just 4% of them ever got institutional finance. Now the whole effort is to shift this institutional finance to this sector, which obviously is also informal sector, if one may say so, or formal to extent but doesn't get counted, but employs a lot many people. And at a time when people were talking of generation of jobs, it's become a part of the political discourse. The Mudra, the accounts say something like 3.48 crore accounts were opened in 2016, as by 2018 it has swelled to 3.69 crores. So the accounts are there, so also the disbursements. The beneficiaries, when they come out and tell how they've benefited, obviously the effect will be something more, because many more would be looking at
snowballing.
That's what Singh also says in a way, and he's also saying another thing, which is part of the media, that good news is never the news, bad news is the news. But apart from that, I think there are certain important implications of this. First is, if we accept technology being neutral, that what the Prime Minister is doing, the other political parties and leaders can do it as well. And Congress has done it once in Madhya Pradesh, and I can see that in future all the political parties will do it, use it. Also, it's not very cost effective, it is expensive. But the fact remains that first, if you are thinking in terms of implementation, and there again Singh pointed out certain situation which is not exactly rosy, but then we have to understand the fact that India is a cooperative federalism. And if there is problem, even when the bulk of the states are being ruled by the same political party which is ruling at the center, then there should be certain amount of introspection that why it is so. Now, apart from that, I think there are some important points. You see that the Mudra Yojana, you said that we are not exactly doing very well in manufacturing sector, and even the Skill India scheme is not flourishing as the way it is expected. But these are important initiatives. I think a periodic stock taking is very important. But then if you just include it to the beneficiaries, then you just get one side of it. I think a larger audience should also be there and other points of view should also emerge. That's what liberal democracy is all about. But then in a pluralistic democracy that India is, I think even the other political groups and parties will take up the necessary initiative and will find out the shortcomings and the alternatives. But either way, since the Prime Minister is the pioneer of using this digital age and social media, he gets certain amount of positive advantage as it happens in tennis. But the important point is that there is also a danger of overdrive. There is also the question that the positions you are taking up on a particular thing, you are also ignoring lot other. So in a larger comprehensive manner, I think more such interactions will be necessary, and there is also a good idea that in such kinds of interactions, if the opposition voice is also heard, that's how democracies flourish, and that's how a consensual democracy is built.
Mr. Singh, if you look at this other scheme which is equally grandiose and very ambitious is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, because I think the Prime Minister is very clear that by the year 2022, almost every household should have a Pakka house, which is something a very, very laudable idea. But it is a very big plan, because if you look at the statistics that has said that even could be starting replacing the existing slums, which of course very common in urban segments of the society, credit-linked subsidies. They have identified something like 4,041 towns as per the 2011 census. Obviously, we have not, next census will take some time. And 500 class 1 cities will be developed in 3 phases, whereas and there's including part of it is also the Gramin Awas Yojana, because you have categorization where you have. It's a very grand plan, and of course the dwelling units and the size may be small, but depending that but it also has some elements of what is called the Swachh Bharat, the drinking water, clean fuel, solar energy or renewable energies as part of it looks at a bigger picture while breaking down into smaller units.
See, there is no denying the fact that some of the schemes are really going to revolutionize the development process. It will exacerbate the entire process. But I'll give you another figure. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, very recently, the union government has written a letter to Bihar government saying that your achievement is just 2.3%. I mean, you have not achieved your target. It is just 2.3%. Why should we further allocate funds in this scheme? So if so much is the reluctance, so much is the casual approach to the whole thing by the state governments, you can imagine a good plan will eventually end up completely as a sterile exercise, because state governments are not equally enthusiastic. Mudra Yojana, initially the opponent of this Yojana, this plan, they did say that no, I mean, you are just giving money. How does it generate employment? I was talking to a unit head. He said 93% of the money that I had given has been returned. And the man is saying, now I have sufficient money to run my business, and therefore now I don't require it. So he has paid. 93% is the payment. It doesn't happen in big industries. So you can imagine that Mudra Yojana per se is very good. Now how it is being implemented, or other benefit schemes, are they being implemented properly? Like health scheme. Health scheme is one of the finest, 5 lakh for 60 crore people. You can imagine that the world's best scheme, health insurance scheme. But when it comes to implementation, as Professor Mukherjee has said, you have raised the aspiration of people. Now they expect that we will have a good delivery system so far as health is concerned. Is it really getting delivered? And for that you need entire very mass scale structure at secondary, tertiary level, primary health center, community center, and then medical colleges. Are we going to have it in next 9-8 months? So these are the problems we do confront. But otherwise these schemes are very good. Only implementation part. Now I think more focus of the Prime Minister and the government as such, or the party, Prime Minister's more focus would be more on how it is getting implemented. Corruption-free implement. Now what will happen? The crop insurance scheme, you have raised it to 1750 per quintal. Now, if a poor farmer goes to a rice purchasing shop, the man will simply say, it's not good quality and you get it corrected. The bag is not good. And this is how they are trying to turn them away. With the result that next is standing the touts. Those touts will purchase it and they will sell it again in turn to the same godown, same government purchasing center. This is the problem, and then frustration will grow. So the next step, one step is very good, kudos, Prime Minister's approach, but its implementation, now next approach of the Prime Minister should be to ensure through the state governments, and which Professor Mukherjee has said, now the state governments are being run by the same party. So therefore, simple instruction, categorical speaking order should go that I am not interested in all your emotional content. I am interested in implementation of these new projects on health sector, also in agriculture sector. If these two schemes are really implemented, I think country, poverty, miseries will be completely eradicated in this country.
Professor Mukherjee, the fact also is that Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas or Skill India, now this is something has been a very one of the prime drivers of the flagship programs. The idea is to kind of create jobs and make youth empowered for especially those who are not highly educated or who school dropouts and others who are going to ply small trade, skill them in requirement of the way the country is changing, the way technology, as you said, is coming in. We have had mixed reports over the period of last 3-4 years. The government has done a lot. Money has been pumped in, some 12,000 crores
were allocated. Had to go on that.
So, but you look at it, again, we had in the previous setup something called the National Manufacturing Council, or the whole idea was to skill people. Now, Skill India is far more focused in terms of getting people across to understand. There are figures that almost so many crores have been trained, there have been placements, all these figures are available on the websites of the respective governments. Is it meeting the larger goal that it was aims to?
Prashant, first we should look to the grim situation that is there. 90,000 railway jobs and 2.5 crores applicants. So there is a huge mismatch in our entire educational structure, and at the same time we hear that you don't get competent people. There I think there is a fallacy in our education system itself, which the East Asian countries avoided, is that we have built IITs, but we have not built proper, ITIs. And the Skill India, if we choose to succeed, first we have to change the focus from one to another. That unless and until you have trained technical manpower, the nation cannot move. And one reason of the success of East Asia, as Galbraith says, because there is no shortage of technical manpower, whereas in India there is an acute shortage. Except for the IT sector, the other sectors are really deficient in both knowledge and skill. So if we really want to revamp this system, we have to change our priorities and also address the problem in the concept of both needs and social structure. Even today, a middle-class person will not like to be a draftsman. He will like to be an engineer, though that institute may not be of any repute. So first thing, there is a psychological barrier that exists, and that I think over a period of time, with better employment opportunities and improvement of ITIs, that I think is primary, then there is a reasonable result we can expect. But even today, if you really look to, both in the concept of Skill India and training manpower in our country, it is not moving in a desired speed. So the speed is to take up, plus, and also the fact we have to work out some balance between employment and skill, and to see that unless and until our young people get reasonable jobs, the demographic dividend that we talk about may turn out to be a nightmare.
Mr. Singh, the fact just heard Professor Mukherjee, we have had programmed industrial training institutes when they were set up. The whole idea was to train skilled manpower for the industries that country was getting ready and to manufacture. But over the years, if you look at in the last 20 years, especially in the post-liberalization period, the manufacturing sector share has gone down in the GDP. Services sector is almost like 55%. But that is not to say the services sector doesn't give you employment. You also need skill sets for the services sector to flourish. And we've had reasonable skill sets. That is why you have a major share of the services. But increasingly when the government is talking of manufacturing, unless we make India a manufacturing hub, and also Make in India is a major ambitious program, once again, but the kind of skill set that are required for the modern technology, the modern way technology is evolving and changing ever so often. We don't have all qualified engineers to that extent who would be available, but you also need the support staff. I remember very many years ago reading of Mr. Sridharan, the metro man, as he was saying. He said India wants to build a world-class railway system, but doesn't have the manpower or the skilled manpower to even get it erected. So that is something he kind of mentioned. So that really sets you thinking on these issues.
Actually, it is a very important question that we have been deliberating on. What had happened all these years? You have IITs, you have engineers. You will be surprised to know there is a dearth of 32% skilled drivers in this country. There is a clear dearth of fitter. A person who comes to a home, takes care of the maintenance of a fan, he doesn't know how to twist a screwdriver. He is not skilled in that. So if 3-4 times he does it, your screw grooves will be completely cut. It will not be functional. See, Modi ji's some schemes are very judiciously crafted. For example, in rural India, you have 62% population seeking sustenance from agriculture economy, with the result that its total productivity is very less compared to tertiary sector, that is service sector. So you have to take people out of that in the first phase. How will that come about? Simple, train them in ITs, make them under Kaushal Vikas skill development scheme. You have drivers, you should have fitters, you should have turners, you should have this kind of mistris. Basically, they should be mistris. We have complete dearth of this kind of skilled people. Now, if you take from rural economy, they will obviously be, and by the side you have Make in India, good factories where they will be employed. So within 10 years, you skill them, take them out from rural economy. There will be less pressure on agriculture economy. Take them out, have them employed in these secondary, tertiary industries. And after that, parallel you can go for IITs and all these technical higher educations. 3-tier system is very much in the vogue. Earlier also it was there. IITs, diploma, and then ITIs. But it did not work. Now a very strong mechanism has to be developed so that from rural areas, they can simply walk up to 10 kilometers and get their institute where they can train themselves as turner, fitter, driver and all those skilled person. If this comes off, then eventually you will find that the pressure on the agriculture is less and then they can be employable. 1.20 crore people, they get into job market. Obviously, jobs in government are not so much. So obviously they will be completely out of job. The allegation is against the government. Now, if they are skilled, personally we need drivers. But those drivers who are skilled, they are more interested in government job, not in private jobs. So that is where the problem lies, that you skill them, you tell them, go to market and get your sustenance from the market. So these Skill India is one of the finest schemes. But only problem was that it did not fructify because immediately he did not get a job opportunity. It will take some time because commensurate with that, some industries, small scale industries, MSMEs are to be developed, which was not there.
I think one of the factors of Skill India was also to get the industry involved in, because for instance, there is a car manufacturing unit in a particular area. So the skill sets required for that manufacturing could also be co-developed because that becomes a feeder. So the plans are there, and tomorrow when the Prime Minister hears directly from the beneficiaries, obviously he is going to look at a lot more things as to whether the scheme has had the intended effect. And as Professor Mukherjee, you mentioned that if there is any loopholes or lacunae, which probably he might notice without really making it. So then it gives him a fair idea as to what needs.
In the end, I would request you all to please subscribe to our channel if not done yet, so that you can get an instant notification for the videos we upload. God bless you all.